Reclaiming America. I'm Bill.
I'm Dan.
And he's not laughing this time, so he must have some serious discussions going on.
Serious?
Serious.
Yeah, we'll have a little fun today.
I think we might. I think for those of you who do not know, there might have been an election on Tuesday going on nationally.
There was?
Yep. And I believe it or not, I actually had a person call me up the day after and said, I had no idea there was an election yesterday.
Wait, I'm going to defend them, Bill, because you didn't hear much about it, to be honest with you. Now, we all know you should know it's election day. I get that.
No newspapers, no television,
Newspapers.
no emails. I mean, come on. You living in a barn in the middle of nowhere?
Some people are, Bill.
Well, I won't go there.
I mean, honestly, because I watch the local news every day, they really didn't cover it much.
All they do is say it's happening. They have to cover it.
Well, I don't even think they did. Well, they did on election day because the roving reporter, as I call her, was at.
Well, this man found out about it when they were covering it the next day, and he called me and wanted to know why he didn't know.
Well, if he's a Democrat, he's still got 4 more weeks to vote. So. Oh, sorry. Did I say that out loud? Oh, sorry.
And not only 4 more weeks, he can get at least 10 more votes in.
Vote early, vote often.
That's correct.
Vote anytime.
Anyway, mutinies did occur throughout the country, and there were some differing results depending where you went. But for the most part, I have to say, Republicans didn't do as well as they thought they were going to do.
Wow, there's the understatement of the year.
Yeah, they tried to actually match their ineffectiveness in 2022, and they might have exceeded it.
I was going to say, this does not bode well for next year, my friend.
I totally agree with you.
I mean, the big one that they lost was Virginia. I mean, not only did they thought they were going to keep the House and the Senate, they lost both.
Right. And they have a Republican governor.
Who did a lot of campaigning. And oh, by the way, was probably on the radar for 28 or 32.
Well, if facts are put out there, and they are, the governor of Virginia went around helping to hand select the candidates running for each of these districts. And then he went to the RNC.
There was his first mistake.
And asked for some financial support, which is yet to come.
Oh, really? That one I didn't know.
No, that's true.
That is
They have
true.
not yet given him any money. I think it may be late.
When is Rona going to release it? In 2028?
Probably about the same time as she comes out as a major Trump supporter. But anyway.
It was interesting, though, because I think Virginia is very telling to me. Now, some, and I know off air you were talking about this, some think it's the abortion issue. I do think that plays a part. I don't think it's the whole thing.
I think if you look at in the states like Ohio, Michigan, Virginia, I think Virginia has its own separate little issue we'll talk about separately. But you take the other states, the abortion issue turned out a lot of the college kids, and they voted heavier than they've ever done before because they usually sit it out. And you know they're going to be inviting for that because, unfortunately, they use that for birth control. Yep.
Unfortunately, you're right, which is sad.
That I'm right, or that what they did?
Both. Well
As
played,
always,
sir.
I'm
Well
drowning
played.
the first one there with an anchor.
But yeah, I do think that played a part. Ohio in particular, because it was very contentious there. And if you actually went and read what they were voting on, they didn't tell the whole story, but that would be a whole separate show.
And when you get to Virginia, you got to deal with the cabal, which is the northern part of Virginia, which all works in D.C. And they're the ones that swung Virginia to the blue anyway. If you go south of that, for the most part, it's a red state. But the bulk is there. It's very, very much like New York. Gets outside the city.
New York, California,
Yep.
Washington,
But where
Oregon.
the bulk of the people are, where the major part of the population is, it tends to be blue, and therefore it affects the rest of the people in the state. So Virginia may not be the bellwether you're looking at. I think Ohio and Michigan might be much more telling.
I don't know. I'm not shocked at the results in Ohio and Michigan at all. I think they're turning bluer and bluer. Because, and I'll tell you why, it's because of the population drain. The people that were red in those states are moving here, where we are in North Carolina.
Yeah, there's some of them are
Ohio is emptying and coming here. I mean...
But also, we tend to forget, and this is a problem, especially in munis nationally, if you get 20% of the voters showing up, You're doing well.
That's what I want to talk about, my friend, because once again, and I've talked about this before, I feel the munis are the most important elections that we vote on because they're the closest to you
And probably
has
the
the
major
most
effect on you.
direct effect on you, right?
That I'm not arguing.
And yet people ignore them completely. When I went and voted, and I went on election day, I normally do early voting, but I didn't this year. And I was there at what I would think most people would consider prime time, about 5:45 in the evening. Everybody was leaving work and going to vote. When I say everybody, I was in and out in 3 minutes. I timed it.
Well, but I would respond to that because it's dependent what was going on in those precincts. For example, in Brunswick County, which I know a little bit about, one of the problems that we didn't turn a lot of people out was that most of the people running were, there was nobody against them. They were unopposed.
Well, that's another problem that I want to talk about.
And if you got 3 people running for 3 slots unopposed, what's the real issue to go vote? I mean,
well, I'll use my county, which is a different one.
Thank God.
Yeah. So in my county, we had an unopposed mayor, incumbent mayor running. I did a write-in on that. Good job, Tulsi. Because I did write in Tulsi Gabbard for mayor of Wilmington. Yes. But let's talk about the city council. So the city council was up for grabs. Three people. Could have gone one way, could have gone the other. It went 100% Democrat. And they're already talking about increasing spending. So to all of my fellow county mates who decided not to vote, I don't want to hear from you when the taxes go up, which they're already saying they're going to do.
And the sad part in that particular county is they get a $60 to $70 million windfall annually from the sale of that hospital, which is just the interest rate.
So what we're talking about for those not local to us is they sold our hospital to Novant for over $1 billion, which nobody knows where that $1 billion is right now.
It's in a trust, and they're allowed to take the interest, which comes to about $60 million a year.
Yeah.
And yet they're still bumping taxes over there like there's no tomorrow.
Exactly. And it's not, I don't want to just point to our local elections. I saw this when I lived in New York. The apathy for the municipal elections is amazing to me. And it's appalling also because then you've got, well, why aren't my roads fixed? Now, obviously some roads are state roads, but the majority of ones in your town and city are your local candidates that you didn't bother to elect. You decided to let 10, 15, if you're lucky, percent of the population decide.
Somewhere between 10 and 20%
on average.
turnout.
Yeah,
right.
And it's, next year we've got a presidential. It'll be a huge turnout.
Yep.
That, as far as your local living, has relatively little effect compared to your munis. And again, I just wanted to bring that out because it just infuriates me in some ways. Because the people then bitch, well, my road is full of potholes. Why aren't they doing anything about it? Well, did you vote? No. It wasn't that important to me. I had better things to do.
Yep, because it couldn't get there in 17 days.
Like I said, I was in and out in 3 minutes. And a minute and a half of that was me talking to the one poll person, the little guide there, because he happened to be from the area I was originally from. So we were chit-chatting about where we were from for about a minute. And then, and by the way, I want to bring up another thing, if I may.
Please
I'm on a roll today.
Please do.
So we normally do our winners and losers as a segment,
we do.
But I'm going to throw my loser out right now. My loser is to all of you who said that voter ID was going to suppress the vote. Okay? All of you who said that it would be impossible. I have not heard of a single instance in the entire state of North Carolina where voter ID was an issue.
And I will tell you, following on that, I was at a meeting last night where one of our people decided to report that the biggest thing we have to work on is the number of options you get for saying why you didn't have your voter ID there. And we got to narrow that down because it's a major issue. And fortunately, someone was sitting there with the facts, and in the entire county, there was one person that filled out the form.
Out of a county of how many?
15,000 voters actually voting, and 130,000 people in the county, of which 80 some odd were eligible to vote.
Now, I asked the guy that took my ID and all that, I said, have you had any problems? He's like, there hasn't been a single one here.
No.
Not one.
But this person was ready to make a big thing because we have like 30 things in our state that you can show, and we had to narrow that down. But the fact is, it's not an issue. Because unless you're dead, you need some sort of an ID, and probably you need it to be dead too.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's dead people that have Social Security cards because other people are using them. But, when I went in, I had my license with me. The guy went like this, and it worked out better because I didn't have to worry about spelling my name or any of that. He just took my license, looked me up on the computer, and that was it. 15, 20 seconds at most. Mm-hmm. So it didn't slow things down. It didn't prevent anybody from voting. So
and were you doing paper ballots in that county?
They were paper, and then you go into the... I had more problems getting the damn thing in the machine than...
Oh, the tabulator?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, by the way, did you hear some... Not here where we are, but in, I think it was Vermont or New Hampshire, they had a little problem where the machines were switching the votes.
Nah, that would never happen.
Amazing how
Just
that
ask
happens.
a Democrat.
Yeah, so... But yeah, I wanted to throw my loser out since it was timely for what we were talking about, but...
So I get to hold my loser, or do you want my loser out now?
It's up to you.
Okay. My loser for the
Oh,
week...
we're going there, okay.
Okay, my loser for the week is the kids and the parents in Oregon.
Okay.
Their Board of Education, which is, I'm not sure education is appropriate, just passed a state regulation that exempts every graduating student in the state from having to demonstrate proficiency in reading, math, and comprehension because of their loss during COVID. So the losers are these kids that are going to graduate without being able to read, write, or think. State of Oregon, you're the loser of the week.
Just take a step back and think about that. Let that digest for just a moment. So, 18-year-old kid's going to come out of school illiterate, potentially.
And we won't even know that because he hasn't taken a test to go one way or the other.
And then he or she is going to have to go on to college, where they're going to skate them through anyway. And then they're going to get a degree in...
Advanced basket weaving.
Advanced basket weaving. Or my favorite, women's studies. The most useful degree ever.
You're getting a very careful time. I would be real careful because that picture, you may suddenly disappear out there. I may be alone.
Name one job for that degree other than teaching. Enough said. Basket weaving has more opportunities.
Oh.
But anyway, I digress. But they come out of college, they're going to go into the workforce, and then they're going to run into someone like me, who's going to have them come in and do an interview.
And demonstrate skills.
And demonstrate things like, oh, I don't know, can you write a letter, or can you type an email that is legible without LOLs and...
Can you add a column or subtract the number?
Yeah, I mean, can you even use it? They can't even use Excel right now.
That's true.
That's sad. I mean, Excel is 30 years old. It's a crap
program. While we're on this topic, and it's a little bit off, but it's tied. I've been asked to join a gentleman who I've known for 10 years, great respect for him, who's starting a movement in the state of North Carolina to bring back critical thinking in the schools because we don't have it.
Not critical race thinking.
No.
Okay.
Critical thinking.
I just wanted to clarify for our audience.
And I will give you an example back when I was principal of my last high school, and we lost a teacher in September, and it was a history teacher, and I found someone to take their place, but that person couldn't get there for 6 weeks. Had to give notice, whatever else.
Let me guess, you had to go do it.
So, and I took the 3 classes. I gave 2 of them to the teachers.
He lived it.
1 I kept, and it ended up being the 10th grade honors class in civics.
Okay.
And they were all happy to see me day 1, and by the 6th weekend, they were throwing that guy a party, was coming in to take my job. And what was the problem? Because as they said to me, well, you give us facts, we'll give them back to you. You give us dates, we'll give them back to you. And I made them take this information and look at this and tell them, predict what could happen or explain why this happened based on these facts.
You mean actually learn from history?
Critical thinking, God help us. And
what a
that
novel
became
approach.
a problem. But these were the brightest kids in the school, 10th graders. And they were absolutely shocked. And then I made them every day write an essay. Ooh.
Man, you're as bad as I was when I was teaching.
Yeah, but I have standards.
Well, I taught at college too, so
Well, that means you didn't teach. But
that might not be so far of an unfair assessment.
But anyway, with
Bill.
all that said, we will be working with Mr. Draws, who will be probably coming on with us here in a week or 2 or 3. And we'll give him a chance to come on with us. And I know he's going on to another station where a friend of mine is working with him. And but I'll be working with him, and I will keep you updated because this is an important factor. If we can get kids to thinking, because one of our issues today, why the college kids can run around and take such obvious stands or stupid stands, in my terms, they can't actually sort through it and figure out what's true and what's false. They don't have critical thinking capabilities.
They have to be told what to think.
And they do, and they listen.
They lap it up like a kitten to a saucer of milk. And then when you point out to them, here's the real fact, and we'll probably get into this more in the next segment, because I do want to jump into Israel-Hamas again.
Well, that's next.
And more specifically, your good buddy, Rashida Tlaib.
My friend?
Your personal friend.
Right.
I heard you dated her, too.
Carbon dated her, maybe, but that's about as close as you could have
high five on that one. That was good. But anyway, it's funny. There's a sitting member of Congress who doesn't even have the basics of history.
You're taking the next second.
I know, but my point being that here's an elected official that doesn't know history. You're seeing this throughout everything, and it is, in my opinion, the fault of the education
professors
system.
That don't know history, and they're teaching the kids not to know history.
Do you think they don't know it, or they are purposely not teaching it?
I think they want to teach what they believe rather than what the facts are.
Right.
And they are convinced
That's
by
my
teaching
opinion,
that. Again, you go back to the 1930s and 40s when they figured out they couldn't do a revolution to take over the country. The communist, socialist, leftist group turned around and they said, we need to take over the institutions. So they took over education. When they took over education, they were able to take over government and train government people, lawyers, and take over that group. And they eventually, we're now where we are now, after decades of them teaching the kids their version of facts.
Which, to put a nice little bow on this segment, had they done that, these kids might have actually gone out and voted in the municipal elections because they would realize how important they are.
But they've also taught them that there's no sense in voting because the government's against you and you're never going to get a break anyway, so why bother? And I've said this before.
Or the government is your friend and just let it go and they'll be
the government will do everything you need them to do for you. But there's an old line, if a government's big enough to give you anything you want, they're big enough to take whatever they want. And that's an issue.
Which is exactly what they're starting to do.
And I think that might be a great way to end this
segment. Beautiful time to end the segment.
So with that,
move on.
We'll be back shortly after we pay a bill or 2 or 3.
And we're back to Reclaiming America. So we kind of teased this a little bit.
Yeah, we did.
So we want to talk about some congressional events that happened this week. There was a few little tasty tidbits to discuss.
There were some interesting things that happened. Censure might be a word we might want to put on the table.
I think we need to talk about that.
Yeah, why don't you tell people what happened?
So, Bill's former girlfriend, Rashida Tlaib, his wife's going to kill me for that, got censured. By the way, did you see her crocodile tears?
People left on Earth, human race would be extinct.
Oh my God! Did you see her speech when she got it?
Oh yeah, did you see the prayer on the floor?
Oh, the whole. I mean, I'll give her this. She should win an Academy Award.
No, the sad part is she believes it. She's not acting.
I'm not buying that. But it was where I want to go with it is I thought it was very good to see that your boy, Mr. Johnson, stepped up and pushed it forward.
And interestingly enough, there were 4 Republicans who did not vote for it.
What a shock.
I think they basically came from her district because I got to work with her in that area.
Okay.
But I think that's probably the only reason. But it was passed, and she was censored, and the Democrats were very upset by it.
The win to me wasn't that it was passed, that they even put it up for a vote. No. That's the win for me, right?
No, to me, it had to pass. Now, there are other things they can't win, for example, like an impeachment, but they got to go through the procedure to show people. This one they could win and make happen.
Well, they
so
did
just
win
putting it up would not have done enough for me.
What's amazing to me is to see the people that didn't vote for it. I mean, when you take a step back and if you have not read what she's been posting on Twitter, what she's been saying, I mean, she fully supports essentially the erasure of the Jewish population in Israel.
River to the sea.
And she says, that's not what it means. Well, the funny thing is the head of Hamas came out and said
that's what it means.
On video, posted on their website, that it means we erase Israel from the map.
And anybody in between.
So she looked like a fool. She is a fool, I know, but
that's not hard. And she's got friends. The squad's a bunch of fools.
But even the AOC backed away from her, which is telling you something.
Well, and I did some
research
on AOC.
Wait, before you say that. You got 4 Republicans that didn't vote for it. That means they're farther left than AOC. What does that tell you?
I don't even want to go there. I found out some interesting information about AOC, though, someone did some research on her. She lives in a district that's primarily Jewish. That's true.
No, really?
True. But what's interesting is she wins every year because only about 11% of the people bother to vote.
Goes back to what we talked about in the first segment. Yeah. I think they're going to come out.
Oh, I think
this
they're in trouble.
She's
and she's got a viable candidate coming up against her.
And that's why
so does Tlaib, too.
The person, I forget the person's name that's going against Tlaib. I watched her
She's a
speak.
Palestinian, but she's a great speaker.
Wow, she was impressive.
Yes, she was. I heard her talk.
Very impressive. I think AOC backed away because of her district.
Yeah.
And then Omar was right there with her. Good old Ilhan.
Yeah, well, she's kind of safe because she's coming from the Somali district, basically, that Obama put up there in Michigan or Wisconsin, whatever, where he put them.
I just, when you look at that, a golf clap to Mr. Johnson for putting it up for a vote. Obviously, it succeeded.
And passing, which is probably more important. For the bulk of the Republican Party stood fast. I do not think a Democrat crossed over. I don't recall seeing that.
I know there were 4 present votes.
There were 4 present
voting
votes,
for it, right? But I don't know the breakdown. I didn't care at that point. The fact that they even got it out there to be voted on was all I was ever asking for. But that wasn't all that happened in Congress this week.
Yeah, but why don't you go ahead while I catch up with you?
Well, there's so many things to talk about. So, Ms. Blackburn has called for the subpoenaing. How do you say that word? Subpoenaing.
The subpoenaing?
Subpoenaing.
I don't think that word exists.
I don't know. Well, I'm going with it. Of the Jeffrey Epstein client list. That could be fun to see.
Yeah.
Because 3/4 of Washington is on that list.
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Mr. Epstein,
Bill.
In case you lived under a rock and you didn't know you vote and you didn't know some of these other things, Mr. Epstein was running an operation where he would take influential people in various places and he would take them to an island which was basically staffed with...
He was a travel agent.
Yeah. And he was coming home to mama every time. And he would have young women not there of their own volition and force them into sexual activities with these people.
Careful, Bill.
I said sexual. I didn't say rape.
You can't say that word.
I didn't say rape. I said sexual activities.
Okay, go on.
That's it. That's for now.
That's a nice way to put it. And then, unfortunately, despite being in a prison with guards all around him, somehow or another, he managed to unalive himself.
In that list, if you know the Clintons and they don't like you, you don't live long.
Yeah, he got Clintoned.
So 22 Democrats voted to censure.
Did they?
To leave.
Oh, we stayed
corrected. 3 voted present and 3 did not vote.
How many were present? I thought it was 4, but whatever.
3 present.
3. Okay.
4. It was 4 Republicans. 1 Republican voted present.
And 3 voted against it?
4 voted nay.
4 voted nay.
So you have 4 Republicans that are farther left than...
And 1 who voted
1
present.
That's 5. And then 3 not voting.
Not going to say
But
any more on that.
Democrats voted to censure.
Well, then I'll give some of the 22 Democrats credit for a little bit of standards.
Most of whom I would bet money are in Jewish districts.
Yeah, that would not be coincidental.
But yeah, so kudos on that. Kudos on Ms. Blackburn for trying to get the list, because I want to see that list.
So do I. Because we can go to jail for doing something simple. These people did a whole lot more than that, and they need to be exposed.
You got to say allegedly.
They allegedly did it several times.
They allegedly went to the island over a dozen times.
And allegedly they stood there while everyone else did the dirty, and they just watched and drank their coffee.
What'll be interesting, though, is, I mean, the rumors of people on that list are people like Bill Gates, Clinton, we talked about, 3/4 of Washington,
Oh, I'm sure.
3/4 of Hollywood,
I wouldn't be surprised if we can find a judge or two there too.
or 20.
Oh,
One of the Supreme Court judges was supposedly on it. I forget which one. It's mind-blowing what could happen if that actually comes out, because whoever's on it's gonna have a really tough time spending it. That I was just there for the
soda.
soda.
I just came for the
couple
sun.
of Mai Tais.
I came for the sun and
A
the
little
beach.
tan,
You know, and I
little,
closed
like
my
that.
eyes to anything else going around.
Yeah, but kudos on that. What do you got for Congress? We're going to talk about your winner.
Yeah, my winner of this thing is definitely the Speaker of the House, Johnson. You know, he came in as a dark horse, and he made a bunch of statements that he was going to do X, Y, and Z, and so far he's living up to everything he promised.
I have to say, and I was doubtful, right?
Yeah, you were.
I freely admit it. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm feeling pretty good about what he's doing. The big one's coming up next week, the budget.
Yeah, and I think he's already indicated that if they are forced to go to continuing resolutions, it will only be till January. It's not going to be a 6 or 8 month thing like they did last time.
You know what? Because Jeffries came out yesterday saying we need a continuing resolution through the end of the year. I'm okay with that because Johnson's just getting in. So yes, carry it through till 12/31. I could live with that. Then shut it down if they don't have. Shut it down.
Actually, I think if I were them, I would make the deal that
Well-
was extended to January 31st if you guys don't come back in December. Because that little block of time is a dangerous
I could
time
live-
for
I could
people
live with
that have
that.
been voted out.
I could live with it going till January 31st, but then this is going to be the big test.
Yep.
He has to take a
And he-
hard line.
And he has to pass. They have to pass certain. Then they're going to fight for it, and they're going to have to fight a Senate that is full of Republicans that are still not going to support it either, and that's the truth.
Starting with the turtle.
Yes, who I think, to be fair, with what he's had several times, he's had some minor strokes. I think, to be fair, we can say that. And the man is going to
Well,
be
his
80
doctor
some odd
says
years
he has
old.
not had one, but yeah.
Uh,
I actually, again, I don't like him politically. I never have. But I don't wish that on anyone.
No, I agree, but I think
And I think it's appalling that this is happening to him, much like I say about Biden. And people don't care enough about him as an individual, his family. Frankly, to be honest with you, the Republican Party, because the Democratic Party doesn't care about Biden, these men should not be in office.
they need. It's time to go home, and when you're mentally not capable of doing the job, then it's time to retire and let someone to do the job that can do the job. That's very simple. Whether you like McConnell or not, and he's done a couple of good things here and there, and he's made a couple of boner mistakes over his career. But it's time for you now to just go home, take your wife Elaine with you, and please don't let her out, and don't let her come back.
Wow. We're trying to be nice here.
I am. I said please.
Please and thank you.
And thank you for doing that.
Thank you for your service. Get out.
Thank you for your service, and we love everything you almost did, and nothing that you actually accomplished. But Elaine, go home and take care of your husband. And I think
I
he
agree
needs
with
to
you
go
on
home.
that. It's, again, you and I will have this battle probably forever, but 75 is my cutoff. Get him out after 75. I don't care how faculties there are.
Nope, I don't agree.
We're never going to agree on it. We're going to have to agree to disagree. But there's where I wanted to make that point. But getting back to Congress and Mr. Johnson, like I said, I think he's done
Now, I would,
as good a job as could be expected.
To go back to our other discussion, I could see at 75.
Now he's going to go back to it.
Yeah, because you
You're
started
just not going to let it go, my friend.
Nope, I'm not. I could see at 75.
Because you're over that age.
That's true, and I have my facilities sometimes. My
I was
faculties all
going
the
to say,
time, but my
you're the
facilities
proof of my point.
But
Be careful where you're going here.
I could see that at a certain age, at 75, if that's an agreeable number, anybody in holding public office would have to take either every 6 months or every year a test on mental competency.
Out.
Well, you're throwing away some fine minds at some points.
Good. I'm fine with it. Younger blood. There's some more than capable people who
And
are
there's some
younger.
younger blood coming up that I wouldn't let walk my dog.
There's some older folks that I wouldn't let walk my dog, starting with McConnell.
He's an exception to the rule.
We're never going to agree on this.
And that's okay.
Term limits, age limits.
I will support your right to be wrong.
But I'm right. So moving on, go back to Congress.
Go back to Congress. The bigger thing is going to be what's happening with the Senate. They've already sent down 3 of their versions of what the bills should be for budget.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see what Johnson does with that and the House, because they're going to have to go to conference on it at some point, but they're going to have to dig in and fight, knowing that Biden's not going to pass it anyway.
Well, what's going to be, did you hear about Mr. Manchin?
Oh, I did.
He's not running next year.
But you heard what he's doing?
He's going to run for president on...
He's running around the
Potentially.
country trying to find independents to support him for a bid he's not making for president.
For the No Labels Party.
Right.
Against Kennedy, probably. I have a... This is just my guess. I could see those two teaming up.
They might.
I think it would be Kennedy, Manchin, not
I
Manchin,
agree
Kennedy,
in that order. I agree.
I thought that was very interesting to see because West Virginia is about as red a state as there is.
And they have a blue state senator.
And now, the Republicans will blow it somewhere else so they don't get control. But this could be a very interesting year to see because Manchin's already
And
been not afraid to make
Democrats,
waves.
I believe, are 3-1 majority of seats they have to defend.
Yes, but my point being right now, before we get to the election, that it's 51-49. Manchin's already not been shy about making waves, and now that he's announced he's not going to be there, I could see where he
I can see where you're going to start moving and
really starts throwing flies in
trying
the
to
ointment.
start throwing bombs, if
Grenades.
you will, for want of a better
Yeah,
term, to expand his base and extract people that were not
Exactly.
supporting him before for this independent run. I can see that.
If he's looking to run as an independent in the general, he doesn't care about the left base anymore. He's got to win some of the right.
And he's going to want to try. He's going to try to grab center and center
As
left or
much
center
as he
right,
can
depending
get.
where
Center
he
left
can get
to
him
center
from.
right,
But
yeah.
he's going to try to grab center and then lean either way to see what he can pick up for
So,
voting.
when you look at things like the budget, I could see where he might side with the Republicans.
Well, it's
I
going
mean,
to be
he's done it before.
It's going to be an interesting time to be seen.
I was fascinated to see that he was doing that. I wasn't surprised, but I was
I was
fascinated.
also fascinated to see him traveling the country, trying to get other people to not support his non-candidacy.
It's like, there's no secrets anymore.
No,
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten to that point, but there's no surprises or secrets. Now, did you see the poll on Kennedy, too, by the way?
no, I have not.
So, new poll, and we all know, we've talked about polls and how worthless most of them are, but it's fun to still talk about them. It has Kennedy with 36%
Percent of the vote
of the vote right now.
against Biden.
Biden, Trump, he beats them both. It's pretty much a third when you really look at it. Because you got to remember, there's the error of margin. I was shocked by that, but also not shocked.
I don't buy that poll.
Again, polls depends how you word the questions primarily.
And who you ask them to.
But when you look at that and go, even knowing that polls are basically useless, I thought that was very interesting. I said it to you before, my friend, and I'm saying it now. I think there's enough votes out there. I don't think Kennedy can win as an independent, but I think it's going to be a lot larger vote count for him than you could ever imagine. I could see where he pulled 36 to 40%.
Yeah, but I still think he will draw primarily from Biden's people and the anti-Trumpers.
Well, the anti-Trumpers is a lot of the Republican Party right now.
No, that's a whole difference between when you got all these choices and
Your
you
girl
kinda get down
Rona's-
to a gambit.
Your girl Rona would vote for Kennedy over Trump 100 times out of
Not
100.
my girl. That's another date I'm not
You
making.
notice I keep giving them all.
Yes,
the
I know you.
I think, again, I've said it before. I think you're misjudging a little bit just how much anger there is at the two-party system, and it's a protest vote.
And they did that again in '98, and they had a protest vote against Clinton, and guess who won?
No, 92.
92, excuse me.
Yeah. The point I'll make, though, with this, let's say hypothetically he can pull 36%. What is that going to do to the Electoral College? I have a feeling he could win a couple of states, and that's all he's got to do. It might be enough to.
It depends which states, because if you're going to come from a heavily Democratic state,
Let's assume we only got a couple minutes left in the segment, but I'm going to assume that Biden is not running. We probably should talk a little bit about Mr. Newsom again, but
I think you can assume he's not running,
Yeah.
but he's falling.
That was just wrong.
At the polls.
Now the producers even use lights to signal us.
God, that must be another.
Yep, so-
I just thought you got brighter,
I-
and I guess
wow,
I was
yeah.
wrong about that.
Well, why don't we table that and come back and discuss that
Yes, I think so.
after a short break?
And we pay a few more bills that we don't have.
All right, we'll be
Thank
back
you.
in a couple minutes.
Welcome back, everybody, to Reclaiming America. We're in our final segment of the show, and we're going to be talking a little bit about finishing up the Kennedy thing and then moving into Trump a little bit and whatever else is on our mind. So if we have anything...
Just kind of let it ramble. So, yeah, just to kind of close up the door on Kennedy, like I said, I will be very interested to see, one, does Manchin and him team up? That would be a very interesting ticket for me. Kennedy kind of burned me a little bit with the reparations thing. But it'd be interesting to see. I think they could make waves. Especially, we don't honestly have a good idea who's going to be the Democratic candidate, because I just don't believe for a second it's going to be Biden at this point. And then you have the other side of the aisle. Who is going to be the Republican nominee? There was a little thing this week. We haven't really touched on it, but not really.
You mean the non-debate?
The debate?
Yeah, the one that Trump doesn't go to and gets more press for not going than if he...
He got higher rating by a mile again.
Then
But we had some nice fireworks this time.
Yeah, I heard that there's someone this morning that took the entire thing and boiled it down to 3 minutes of lines that were important.
Yeah, they were pretty good. I golf clap to Vivek. I can't say his last name. I won't try because I don't want to butcher it again. But the man scored some points.
Yeah, but your favorite person is still Haley, isn't it?
She is the Kamala Harris of the Republican Party.
That's an interesting simile.
And has about the same qualifications as far as I'm concerned at this point. Do tell, Bill.
You got me caught on that one.
I got him on that one.
Because, she's not my favorite. Now, I think Noam would be a great decision, but she's not in it to win it.
She's not looking. I mean,
Look, those people that were on that stage are running for vice president.
Well,
Let's be
DeSantis
factual.
was running for president.
Yeah, but they'll...
Ron, give it up.
DeSantis is only in there in the event that
Trump
Trump
doesn't make
can't
it.
make it
Exactly.
for whatever reason. He's there. Christie's only there to make sure Trump goes down in flames. And that's his only purpose there. And he's getting paid to be there to do it. And I'd like to know who's funding him. And I can't wait for the reports.
Dunkin' Donuts and Krispy Kreme. Yeah, I went there. Now, I didn't watch all the debate, but I watched enough of it. And I was like, that was one of the best comedy shows I've seen in a long time. I do have to give credit to Vivek, though. He was on fire. Do I think he scored with the voters? No, I don't. But I got to give him credit. He said some things that I've been saying for 2 years, so I want my check because I clearly wrote everything you said.
I think Vivek has earned himself a position in the Trump administration.
I'm wondering if he's the VP potentially.
No, I think you're going to see him go a woman. I think he's indicated he wants a woman.
Vivek checks some boxes too, though.
Yeah, he does. But I really think, and Noam would be my first choice. And if he goes, if he stays to be a populist leader, if he stays to be a populist leader, which means you wouldn't necessarily stay within the party, I think that Tulsi would be an excellent fit coming in. I support that. I think she'd do fine.
I'm all in on Tulsi. You know that.
When I've heard Haley's blew it for me when Trump first got in trouble and she just got out there instead of defending the man, she'd come out there and said, "It's time for you to step away. You're causing too much trouble. So go away."
To me, on the debate stage, she did not come off presidential. I'm putting this as politely as I can. She, as I said, she's Kamala Harris. I really believe that at this point. I just think it would be a mistake for her for VP. Vivek, as I said, made points. DeSantis, Ron, I love you. You were my boy 3 months ago. You need to go away. You're done.
Yeah, my concern with you is, you've done all the right things as governor, but you're running, I hate to say use the word, a crappy campaign.
Who in the hell is running that campaign?
And what scares me, if that's the quality of your campaign, is that what you're going to do should you win? You got to get rid of who's ever running that campaign for you, sir, because they're doing you more harm than good.
Is this higher up in the RNC running his campaign?
No.
Because it's got all the earmarks of it. I mean, oh my God. He was a legitimate candidate against Trump. I think he was. I will still say that. Policy-wise, they're very similar. He's more polished as far as, he doesn't set people off as much. If you want a master class on how to not run a campaign, Ron DeSantis is the man.
He's come a long way in proving that. I agree.
Wow.
Let me put it this way. There's a term we use sometimes: snatching defeat from the mouth of victory.
Yeah. Sad. And who else were we missing? So we got Vivek, we got Ron, we got
Christie. We've talked about.
Christie wasn't on the stage. I'm trying to get on the stage. We're forgetting one. Christie, you talked about, yeah. Christie. Who's the fifth? Wow, this is bad.
Tim Scott.
Tim Scott. Thank you. Who I like also, by the way. Tim, it's time to ride off into the sunset.
Well, Tim has already came out and he's endorsed Trump.
Yeah, I mean, now there's another to me viable VP candidate. I like Scott.
He could be.
I do like him.
Except unless he identifies as a woman, I don't think that's going to happen.
Again, I'll say he checks enough boxes. But that brings me to the next point, which is the presumed nominee at this point.
The Donald,
and his little affairs this week.
Has had a very mixed reaction there. I mean, he's getting along fabulously with that judge. I mean, that judge is doing so much good for his appeals that I think the man is actually writing his appeals for him. All he do is tape it and show it.
And Letitia out there every single day. I mean, whatever you think of Trump, forget party affiliation, forget all of that. Just take a step back and look at what's happening here. You have a trial where the judge alone has made a decision, before the trial even started, basically. You have a district attorney who managed to shut up not just Trump, but his attorneys and prevent them from talking.
And ran on the fact she was going to do this before she had any evidence.
She's got a gag order on his team while she's doing press conferences every single day. The Soviets don't run trials like this.
However,
oh my God.
When the judge comes out and says, I don't want to hear what you have to say, and you're defending yourself, I mean, that's reversible right there. It's over.
Well, every legal expert that I've seen on YouTube and Rumble and all the different places, now I understand that, their faces, but they're all, every one of them, they're unanimous. This is never going to hold up in an appeal.
No.
And I'm going to throw it out there. I don't think they care.
No, they don't.
I think this is just about, it's campaigning. It's negative campaigning.
They're taking him off the campaign trail.
Right.
And if they get lucky and one of these people gets a hit.
One of them will. There's 4 of them. One of them, I believe, will.
He's going to beat all of them. I really think he will.
Long term. I'm talking before the election.
Oh, he's going to be found guilty because his judge is prepared to find him guilty because he's already said that.
Well, he's already...
in a case, by the way, where, and I think we've discussed this already, auditors decide what the property is valued, not the man that owns it, before the bank will give you money. They have adjusters, rather. They come in, they look at the property, they value it, and they say, look, it's worth X millions of dollars. And they get a loan based on that. And he paid all the loans back, so nobody lost money.
Yeah. Who's the aggrieved party here?
James.
Seriously, though, who got hurt here?
Nobody.
Nobody. Literally nobody. It's, Okay, he got loans. He paid them all back.
Whether they were inflated or not, I mean, he borrowed the money. Some bank gave it to him based on their expectations and their investigation. He didn't put a gun to their head and said, "Give me $10 million." They lent it to him at an interest rate, and they got their money back. So there's nobody hurt.
And like no other human being has ever inflated the worth of their house or whatever. Come on.
Never.
But again, I think they're all. This is campaigning, and you're going to see. I don't know. Remember which one's the next trial? Is it DC's next?
I think DC, then Georgia.
Then Georgia. It's just the sad thing is, again, wherever you stand on Trump, you could be the most hardened Democrat, woke liberal. You need to take a step back and go, wow, because you're next. I hate to tell you. One thing I agree with Trump on 100%. What they're doing to him, you're next.
Yeah, and you don't have the tens of billions of dollars to defend yourself. There's a reality there.
I mean, the country's doomed as far as I'm concerned. If whatever happened, it doesn't matter now. It's already happened to me. I don't see how you come back from this. Now, will he ultimately be found not guilty? Once this gets, I don't even think it'll get to SCOTUS, to be honest with you.
Should, but
I don't think it'll need to. I think the New York appellate courts will toss it. It's that bad.
don't know about that. I don't know enough about
as
their
bad as they
breaking.
are, and I know where you're going with that because they are bad. I will freely tell you that. Anyone with even that much of a scruple is going to look at this and toss it. I just don't think it's going to hold up, but it doesn't need to, because the appellate process is at best 2025, maybe 2026 or 7. Election's over at that point.
Once you've won the presidency, you can't be sued. That's a fact. You can't sue a sitting president.
Which is why
you got to wait till he comes out of office.
Right, which is why they're doing it all now too, right?
Yeah, it has to be done beforehand.
And it's just, we're seeing the destruction of the Constitution. The Fourth Amendment no longer exists. The First Amendment no longer exists because they've gag ordered his lawyers. If you want to gag order Trump, okay, I don't agree with it, but
his woman attorney didn't seem to be too gagged the last couple times she came out.
she don't care. She came out racing. I'm not going to stop. And golf clap to her too.
And she is a fine attorney from everything they said about her. She's done a great job.
Her reputation is very good. But I mean, how does this happen? Could you envision this happening 20 years ago when we were,
No.
when you were about 900 years old and I was a young pup in the 90s?
I never knew you were a seal. Something's fishy in that story.
Yeah, but don't bump. Could you have ever imagined that we'd be where we are now?
No, but couldn't imagine 10 years ago where we are.
It is some scary shit, my friend.
We were coming out of the Obama administration knowing everything's going to go a different direction with great hope of regenerating America in 2016, and we were all had great hopes. And it just keeps going the wrong way.
Yeah, well, we've talked
but I
about
still
this
think
before.
my solution that I gave years ago, or months or shows ago, is the best solution for this operation, which is break up the cabal and move DC all around the country. Move every one of these branches to different parts of the country where they can, two things are going to happen. For example, if you move the State Department to Texas, I'll just pick a place. Some of them aren't going because they won't move to, God forbid, Texas land and leave New York City or leave Washington, D.C. So they're not going to go. And that means you're going to get people that live in Texas to fill those positions, and it's going to start changing that group. And
I got an idea along those lines.
yes, sir.
I think the Secretary of Transportation should be in Ukraine because that's where he is now. Because instead of focusing on rebuilding our infrastructure, he's now been tasked to rebuild Ukraine's. How wonderful is that?
I think the first thing he should be doing is tied to a set of tracks.
Careful.
And
by the way, we only got a couple minutes left, but did you see what Mr. Zelensky did?
You might want to refresh me.
He canceled the elections.
Well, yeah, that's not hard. And you just, by the way,
But Bill, we're defending democracy.
Yeah, we are. And just like, did you also see the war that's not coming that we have in the Middle East? We've now put a nuclear submarine in the area.
Yeah,
In addition to that, we've now had 40 some odd attacks on American interests
and
there.
we bombed Syria
And
yesterday as we're filming this.
Yes, and we also blew up a warehouse. That got even.
I mean, it is. I just thought when Zelensky just proved that Ukraine ain't no democracy,
It never will be.
blew that right out of the water.
But we're defending this. We're getting to the domino theory, reborn again, and that's exactly where we're at with this, unfortunately.
Pretty much. So,
But you know, you
time to
also
wrap
notice
things up,
that
my friend.
they're doing a lot of flight intrusions over Taiwan with their planes and whatever
said
else.
it before. Within 12 months.
Yep.
Then all those purple-haired and pink-haired men and women that are about 20 years old, they're going to find out the hard
You
way.
know, Prime Minister Trudeau, you've already said that you like a lot of immigrants. We go to war, you're going to get
gonna
more
get a
than you've
whole
ever
bunch
seen.
of 'em.
Just man the border because they're coming.
And on that note, we got to wrap things up.
And say we'll
Another
see you
great
soon.
show, so we'll see you next time. And don't forget to like, subscribe.
Where?
Every week. Romball, Spotify. Come on. YouTube.
TikTok.
TikTok. There you go. You got them all. See? Not bad for an old guy. All right. We'll see you next time on Reclaiming America.
This is Bill and Dan. Looking forward to seeing you.